Alright, in this video I'm going to be matchmaking every fighter after UFC 328 Chimaev versus Strickland. To start, we have Clayton Carpenter, and he should get a debutant. For Jose Ochoa, I know I'm probably going to get some head turns for this, but you could do him versus Brandon Moreno. It's a big jump up, but Brandon Moreno has lost 2 in a row, and Ochoa is only 2-2 in the UFC, but his 2 losses were decision losses to Asu Almabayev and Lonnie Kavanaugh. But if that's too much of a jump up, and it kinda might be, I think another smart option would be Tim Elliott. Jordan Santos can fight Torres Finney, and a good matchup for Susarkayev would be Tresean Gore. A good bounce back matchup for William Gomez would be Danny Silva. Danny Silva is coming off that knockout win over Curtis Campbell, and this would be a striking fight, so Gomez wouldn't have to worry about the takedowns in this one. Pat Sabatini is on a 4-fight win streak and deserves a top 15 matchup, and I think a good name for him is David Onama. Onama is ranked at 14, so it's a perfect spot for him to break into the rankings. I think Marco Tulio and Jacob Malkoun would be a good fight. This would test Tulio's wrestling and Malkoun's striking. And I think a good matchup for Roman Kopylov would be Roman Dolidze. We could have the Battle of the Romans. I think Jim Miller versus Michael Johnson would be a classic Battle of the Unks fight. And Rebecki and Jared Gordon are both coming off losses on this card, so I think it makes sense timeline-wise to match them up, and I think stylistically it's a good fight as well. For Grant Dawson, I think you give him the sacrificial lamb, Beneil Dariush. This gives Beneil a decent chance against a guy who's not super dangerous on the feet, and it gives Grant Dawson a way into the top 15. Joel Alvarez just got picked up and submitted by Amosov, so I think a fun bounce-back fight for him would be against Kevin Holland. This honestly should be a banger. Amosov deserves somebody in the top 15, and I think a good matchup would be him versus Mike Malott. But if the UFC wants to take their time with Mike Malott more and fast-track Amosov, they could do Amosov versus Sean Brady, which would be a very good grappling-based fight. Ozzy Diaz could fight Cedric Dumas for the Battle of the Mid. Ateba Gautier called out Adesanya, and at first I was like, hell no, please do not do that to Adesanya. But, I mean, I think Adesanya does get knocked out, unfortunately. But if he wins, it would be a very good prospect killer win for him. And I think he has a chance against Gautier. And if he's going to get knocked out by somebody next, I'd at least want it to be somebody who is finishing people and is known as a big prospect. King Green versus Terrence McKinney would be an amazing matchup, and it would probably only last for about 3 minutes, but I'm sure those 3 minutes would be very entertaining. Buckley just got embarrassed by Brady on the ground, and before that he got embarrassed by Usman on the ground. So I think a fun, stylistic, bounce-back fight for both of these guys would be Buckley versus JDM. For Sean Brady, I know I already mentioned the Amosov matchup, but if that doesn't happen, I think another good matchup would be the winner of Bilal Muhammad versus Gabriel Bonfim. Bro, please do Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Brando Pericic. Waldo is obviously a very talented striker, and Pericic is on a 3-fight knockout streak, coming off a win over Shamil Gaziev. This would be a great fight at heavyweight. Volkov should definitely be in title contention, but if Aspinall's healthy, I think he deserves the shot against the winner of Pereira versus Cyril Gane first. So if that does happen, I think you could do Volkov versus the loser of Cyril Gane versus Alex Pereira. Or, hear me out, you could do Volkov versus Josh Hokett. If the whole Aspinall, Cyril Gane, Pereira situation takes a long time to get through, I think Volkov versus Hokett makes sense, because even if Hokett gets a win over Derek Lewis, I still think he kinda maybe needs one more fight, and you don't want to leave Volkov just sitting around. So this would be set up as a clear number 1 contender fight. Tatsuro Taira should get the loser of Manel Kape versus Kyoji Horiguchi. I think this makes a lot of sense rankings-wise, and Taira also said his dream fight was against Kyoji Horiguchi, so if Horiguchi loses against Manel Kape, you could do Taira versus Horiguchi in Japan as like a main event fight night, and that would be huge. I know the Manel Kape versus Horiguchi matchup is getting a lot of attention at flyweight, but I think the clear next fight for Joshua Van is a rematch versus Pantoja. They still have unfinished business after Pantoja's injury, and after Van's performance against Taira, I think the matchup looks even better. For Khamzat Chimaev, I think he has to move up to light heavyweight, and I think the best matchup there would be him versus Paulo Costa. Costa needs a big matchup at light heavyweight after his win over Mirzakhanov, and you could set this up as a number 1 contender fight. They also have some history and a little bit of beef, so I think the build up to the fight could be fun. And the clear next fight for Sean Strickland would be him versus Nasruddin Imavov, which I'm not too hype about seeing, but Imavov is next in line and does deserve the shot. So those are my matchups for every fighter after UFC 328 Chimaev versus Strickland. Let me know what you thought about the matchups. Let me know if you thought they were gas. Let me know if you thought they were ass. Either way, just let me know. And thank you for watching. I will see you on the next one.
That's what I'm talking about. This shit means something to me, man.